Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Welcome to this episode of Alien Lizard Humanoids. Tonight we'll be looking at the case of Michael Barisone and Lauran Kanarek. We'll get started with the introductions. Jeff?
My name's Jeff Pincin, licensed clinical counselor in Delaware and Pennsylvania. And please leave a comment, a question. We may respond in future episodes. And if I hadn't become a counselor, I wanted to be a dancing horse. Turns out I can't dance. And I'm not a horse.
That would make it difficult, yes.
So counseling. Yeah, it's a shattered dream of not being a dancing horse. I think we've all had it at one point.
Yeah.
Most of us, yeah.
Right.
Young people growing up, they want to be an astronaut, firefighter,
Right.
dancing horse.
It's always the third
It's
option.
on the list.
Right.
It's on the list.
Absolutely.
Every 6-year-old in the country.
That's what they're writing on their kindergarten stuff. Yeah, dancing horse.
Mike?
My name is Mike Smith. Also licensed professional counselor in the state of Delaware, and now clinical supervisor in inpatient drug and alcohol rehab. Job change recently. That was good and exciting.
Right. Thanks, Mike.
And if I hadn't become a counselor, I had wanted at one point in my life to be a jockey, but then I got too tall.
Tough break. Yeah. Another tough break. Yeah. Alrighty. So this case, this was on 48 hours. There's some lawsuit action with it, so there's some court documents available. And if I'm not mistaken, pretty much the entire trial is available online.
Yeah.
Really amazing case. So, like when you first hear about this case, I think it strongly leans one way, but then when you learn more about it, it leans completely the other way. That's my opinion. We'll get into the details. But let's hear a summary of what happened here.
All right, so two main people here. Michael Barisone, Lauran Kanarek. Was that how we're going to say it? Kanarek? Sure, we'll go with that. So Michael Barisone was not known to me, but maybe well known to some out there. Very well-known dressage trainer. Horse dancing or training horses to do certain things.
You could have been one of those horses.
I could have been one of the horses.
If you'd been born a horse.
If only I could dance, you mean. And was a horse.
Born a horse, yes.
So he's well known. Trained Olympic and other high level riders in this sport, dressage.
He was himself an Olympic medal winner.
He was he was one of the I think backup or something like that, or in a way. I know there's some controversy about if some people call it a sport or not, but we won't go there. It's something that people work hard at, clearly. So well known in that space.
A lot of training.
Right?
Considering the word dressage is French for training.
Well, that's a good point. So he had met Lauran Kanarek in March 2018, agreed to train her at his New Jersey farm, where he also had stables. And so she ultimately kept some horses there, and her boyfriend did some work kind of in exchange for keeping the horses there. And Michael was training her in dressage. There were a lot of issues. We'll say that to summarize it. Lauran and her boyfriend were living on the property as well, and this kind of becomes important too. They were living in this white farmhouse, and then Michael, his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's 2 kids were living on another floor in this white farmhouse. So living on the same property, he was training her, and then things just didn't ultimately go well. Lauran didn't feel like it was a good, like she was getting what she expected or what she needed or what the agreement was, and started kind of harassing Michael, among other things, social media harassment and so forth. This all culminated, and we'll go over the details, but this all culminated in Michael, from his words, kind of blacking out, not remembering what happened, got a gun, shot Lauran 2 times. And there's other details, of course, too. So the culmination of that, they had the hearing, the trial, and...
Now, Lauran didn't die from the wounds. She was shot, but she was not killed.
Shot twice. Critical wounds, but did not die.
But she did survive, which is why this is Alien Lizard Humanoids and not the murder part.
Right, exactly. The attempted murder part. So they had the trial, and then ultimately Michael, he was charged with attempted murder, but found not guilty by reason of insanity, which we know does not commonly work. Is kind of one of those TV things like just call yourself insane. It'll work. But in reality, that's not
almost never works.
right. Not a thing that's actually going to happen for you. If it does, then you still might have a lot of complications after, a lot of things to go through after that. So interesting case with an interesting outcome and a lot of details and probably a lot to learn in it as well.
Yeah, Michael Barisone was very successful as a trainer. He had 2 ranches, one in Florida and one in New Jersey.
Yeah. And the one in New Jersey, right in the middle of horse country, they say. So I didn't know there was a horse country in New Jersey, but it must be a kind of a defined area of, there's a lot of ranches, a lot of, not ranches, what do they call a horse farm? But what do they call it when they have like training there or something? There's another word I'm
Horse
missing.
ranches.
I don't know. Ranches doesn't.
Stable.
Stable, maybe
Stables.
that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So,
Yeah, so I'm trying to think where Long Valley is. I looked it up. I think it's a little bit west of Newark. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe 20 miles, something like that. Not actually that far, but it gets rural pretty quickly out there. And looking at like the map, you can see there's not much around. It looks like a bunch of farms.
Yeah. Anywhere you have farmland, you have horse country. Even here in Delaware. I was going to the beach for a beach vacation, taking some back roads because it was nice and scenic, and we passed a horse farm in Delaware. Well, a miniature horse farm because it's Delaware, and we're small.
Small farm.
Small farm.
Normal size horses, though.
No, they were miniature horses.
Oh, were they?
Like the farm is actually fairly large, but they were miniature horses.
Huh.
Yeah. Very, very small horses.
You're right, Dr. Grande. It's between Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Newark, New Jersey, and New York City, and all that whole area. So kind of right in between both of them. But it's surprising to think of that being rural, so close to Newark and New York City and everything. But yeah, you're right. It's all green on the map.
Yeah, New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the United States. And that population is mostly above like 195, like so in the northern part of the state. So to find real estate up there that's farmland, I mean, that's not what people think of when they think of northern Jersey. Right? They think of Jersey City, Elizabeth, Newark, Bayonne, Fort Lee. They forget that there's a bunch of land to the west of that expensive property. But keep in mind, it is still New Jersey.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So yeah, don't get too excited. Right?
Yeah, it's Jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we have some fans who are in New Jersey. I don't want to say too much negative about it, but come on, there's not much positive we can say about it either.
It puts us in a tough spot, right? I saw there was some comments on the with the kind of making fun of the dressage, right? Obviously, it is a sport. I mean, I'm sure people work hard at it, but it's just funny to me because it's not like a sport of the people. It's not like baseball or basketball or football that everyone plays when they're like in gym class when they're young. Like they don't take a horse in and be like, you know what, put that basketball down.
We're going to get you on the back of this horse.
It's time for some. You're not going to ride it. You're going to dance it. This is a dancing horse. This isn't a riding horse. You're not jumping over anything with this horse. You're not towing anything. You're not pulling a wagon.
Right.
It's dancing time. This just doesn't happen.
I mean, when I was in school, they taught us square dancing, but not with horses.
Yeah, right. Sure. But you could have.
It could have, if only we'd had a dancing horse.
If only.
Yeah, but I'm sure you have to work very hard and become physically fit. I think that's any time you're riding a horse, right? Because they're difficult to control sometimes, and I imagine if they roll over you, that's pretty painful, mostly because of the crushing and dying part.
Oh yeah, that's an unfortunate aspect.
Depends on how much of you they roll over.
That's true.
I'm thinking like a dog rolling over.
If it's a full-on rollover, then yeah.
So,
But I mean, horses do like to roll. And sometimes, like my fiance has a horse, and her horse, he loves to roll because he likes to be dirty. Like every single time we bathe him, like we'll groom him out, and she'll like take the hose and shampoo his coat down, and he'll be beautiful. He's a paint, so he's black and white, and the white will be shining, and he'll run out of the barn and just like roll in the dirt right out front of the barn and just be filthy again.
a dirty dancing horse.
Dirty dancing.
He doesn't do a lot of dancing, but he does apparently like to go swimming sometimes. I think last time she went out, not the last time she went out on a trail ride, but last year she went on a trail ride, and one of the other horses in the line just decided it was going to roll in a creek, and he stood there for a second and decided that's a great idea, and just went over, dumped her right out of the saddle, and just rolled, and she got soaked because she went into the water.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, so maybe you have to be physically fit to jump off the horse in time or whatever, right? Like,
Injuries amongst horse things is not uncommon.
Well, Christopher Reeve, famous. Yeah.
I mean, it is so common that, especially in Pennsylvania, at any place where they do equestrian training, anything, there's a sign that says you take on horse activities at your own risk, because there is a risk of injury. As these animals are very large, and they have independent minds, and they're not just going to be. I mean, they tend to be more docile than, say, I don't know, rabid wolves, but they're still living, breathing creatures, very dynamic beings that will do things that they want to do.
And if you're going to force them to dance, I feel like you're definitely taking your own risk there. Like, I don't think they dance in the wild.
Not usually.
That's true.
Although. We don't know if we haven't been watching in the right areas.
If a horse dances and no one's around to see it, did it actually dance?
Is it a waltz or
is it a
tango?
Right.
I still think a horse doing the Macarena would be, then I would be impressed. Then I'd be pulling out the medals from the Olympics and passing them out if that was my job.
You'd never say anything negative about dressage again if a horse did
it's
the
a
Macarena.
Macarena.
That's the baseline. Yeah.
Look, if you got a horse doing up on two legs, doing the moonwalk,
that would also be pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there are some horses that can do the moonwalk on all fours. I don't know about on two. It's possible. I haven't seen the video of it yet, but
something to aspire to.
Who knows?
The twist would also be impressive.
Oh, that's true.
It could be.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a natural movement for a horse.
Yeah. I don't know how their spines work, but I doubt they would be too happy with the twist.
Especially not if they got a saddle on.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I imagine the sport's important, though, if you like historically, where like there was a time when horses were the major weapon of war, right? Heavy cavalry, light cavalry, and of course they've been a major source of transportation on land for many cultures around the world for thousands of years. Right. So,
demonstration of the precision training you can put your country's war horses through would be an amazing feat to show. It could potentially avert some conflicts. Like they can do what with their horses?
They're fighting and dancing horses. That's it. Is it a dance off or something?
Dance off, bro.
Yeah, if they can't fight, they just dance off, and that's that.
Just the sheer amount of precision movement that they can get the horse to do is impressive, and that's kind of the purpose.
Yeah. So in this case, Michael Barisone, he famous. I kind of feel like I should put that word in quotes. I mean, again, I don't think this is a massive community, but okay.
In the horse community,
yeah, he's a big deal,
and especially the dressage community.
Right.
Very, very big deal.
Right. I'm sure he's famous in that. Right. Small, wealthy enclave of people that dance horses. It's like, okay, but either way, I mean, it's not a sport of the people, but it was a big deal for him, and he had apparently accumulated some wealth. The legal documents appear to show that he was the co-owner of the Hawthorne Hill, which is the Long Valley or whatever it was, New Jersey, and then the 48 Hours mentioned the place in Florida as well. But I couldn't find any record of that, it wasn't named in the lawsuit ever. Right. But we'll get to it. But he eventually sued the police in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And in that document, which I'm assuming that his lawyers created, and usually they try to tell the truth in those type of things, but we don't know if this is true. For certain, we see that his lawyers are saying that Lauran had a criminal history, and her boyfriend, Robert Goodwin, had a criminal history. And it really seems like with Lauran in particular, stalking was kind of something she did.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how to get around it. It's right in there. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but it's what It's what Michael's attorneys are asserting.
Right.
Okay.
Stalking and similar behaviors too, it seemed.
And-
At least according to them.
Right. And heroin. Heroin
Right.
seemed to be a big deal as well. So kind of coming into this, again, at the first glance, what you see is like, okay, a guy takes a Ruger LC9S and puts 2 holes in a woman. I'm assuming at pretty close range.
Tries to shoot at the boyfriend.
Allegedly.
Both misses.
They couldn't find a case for that, so who knows. But yeah, at least 2 shots, maybe 3 shots. You think, okay, he's guilty, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, case closed. We can turn the lights off, shut everything down. It's been fun. But the more you look at this case, it's like you start tipping away from Lauran over to Michael.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're done, you're ready for her to go to jail,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's like, I can't believe she's not in jail.
Yeah.
Why? She wasn't charged with anything.
Can't believe the police didn't do anything about this prior to that moment of the shots fired.
And we traditionally, like most members of juries, we've not been fans of the insanity defense. We've covered other cases where it's asserted, and I don't know if we've ever sided with temporary insanity or...
Maybe like it wasn't tried, but our friend Ronnie,
Yeah.
if he had gone temporary insanity, I think he might have been acquitted, but he did not. He definitely wanted to assert
He certainly
his-
acted like
his
it.
sanity,
Well,
representing himself.
right.
Um,
Right.
But the evidence showed.
I was going to say, like, the evidence will show that horse can dance. I'd love to see those 2 cases combined. Yeah, so, we're skeptics as mental health counselors with things like insanity defense because they're abused. Like, realistically, maybe 1 out of 1,000 people that claim it have some type of legitimate basis. And I think Michael Barisone is one of them.
I do too. I agree.
It's interesting because one of the attorneys, I think it was an attorney for Lauran on 48 Hours, said that the jury was they were the only people that had temporary insanity.
I think that was her father.
Was her father?
It was her
Okay,
father. So
It was somebody representing her side, right? And I mean, I completely disagree. Couldn't disagree more. I think the jury actually saw through what the state was trying to do in this case and called him out on it.
Yeah.
This was what was insane was bringing charges.
yeah.
I don't know the way to put it, right? The state, well, again, we're talking about New Jersey, so. All right.
Nobody's perfect. New Jersey's way less than that.
So that's kind of how, this case starts. You have this initial, like, okay, guy shoots a woman, must be guilty. You start looking at all this stuff. And really, it really does seem like she had a history of doing this, and that's exactly what she did from the get-go.
Right.
When she kind of forced her way or kind of stayed on the farm. There was water damage to the house. And Michael's like, we both can't live here.
Right.
And she wouldn't leave. And allegedly, her father, who's a wealthy attorney in Livingston, New Jersey, pressured, like threatened lawsuits and stuff. And I guess Michael just felt like he didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Plus, he was getting paid $5,000 a month for 2 horses, even though he's boarding 5, I think, up to 5. And the boyfriend worked around the farm for the other horses to stay there. Seems like the humans working for the horses to stay. Okay, whatever.
All of the things that he was getting for $5,000, actually, all the things that Lauran Kanarek and her boyfriend were getting for $5,000, actually a heck of a deal.
But there's some other training money too, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, she was getting trained in dressage, by Michael Barisone and his team, and so like that's right there. Some people would just be paying $5,000 for that alone a month. But she also got an apartment in the house
Place to live. Yeah.
and was able to board 5 horses. He was only charging her for 2, and the other 3. And her boyfriend got basically a job around the farm for $5,000 a month. I mean, their expenses were low,
Especially in that area as well. Probably being a little bit more upscale of an area. being close to all the major cities, and I assume that property, I think like you said, Dr. Grande, is probably pretty expensive there. So I agree with you. But were you saying that there were other, she was paying other things on top of the 5,000?
I thought when she was testifying, now, of course, I would be careful about believing anything she said.
Right.
But when she was testifying, I think she alluded to other expenses, other monies that were being paid. But, you know, I mean, obviously it wasn't worth it. I mean, Michael's probably spent way more than that in attorney's fees.
Yeah, right.
And now he's facing more attorney's fees and you know, possibly liability with the civil lawsuit. Although, if the jury sees it anything, if the civil jury sees it anything like the criminal jury did, they're gonna be like, can she pay? Can it go the other way? Can this?
Can we
Can we turn this around a little bit?
We're gonna reward. You know,
If we put a negative, does that mean that she'll?
him? It was really just, she wanted to be trained by Michael.
Right. And it was his girlfriend at the time.
He had a team. It was him and two others. His girlfriend was Julia Gray. I think was her last name was Gray.
Mary Haskins Gray.
Mary Haskins Gray. Yeah. Mary Haskins Gray. She was one of his trainers. He had another trainer, and they all shared the responsibility of training all of the students. And all of the other students understood that and were happy to get whatever attention they needed. But apparently Lauran was not. Mm-hmm. She wanted his attention. Yeah. She wanted him and him alone. And she didn't appreciate the fact that what she was being required to do was pay attention to these other instructors. And she found that to be, when he said no to her, she found that to be bullying. Mm-hmm. And she would post that on Facebook at least once, that she was being bullied.
Yeah, and people on the farm said there was nothing like that. They didn't support her at all. Yeah. I don't think any of them did, except her boyfriend.
So as soon as she doesn't get her way, that's when we see the same potential behaviors that people have seen before from her, that she's potentially gotten in trouble for before. Yeah,
and she made it very public. Like, it wasn't just she went to him and said, "I think you're a bully." It was I think
posted
Facebook.
On Facebook.
Yeah. And I guess some people saw it or whatever, but it was public either way. And there was just a few things she said I thought were, I mean, they were clues that Michael should have taken action right away, but maybe he tried. Maybe he tried to get her to leave earlier. But the chess thing where, like, Mary Haskins Gray was the queen and the queen must be sacrificed to protect Michael, who's the king. Like, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
What like that's to me, that's kind of threatening.
It definitely came off as threatening. It very much was like well, every time I play chess, I'm reminded of people who sacrifice their queens to save the king. But then sometimes you find the king is already been captured and killed, which is not how it works in chess.
No, that ends the game.
Like,
the checkmate ends the game. Yeah.
And sometimes, but then you have to sacrifice your queen to save the king. Like it really, really implied that Mary was the queen and she wanted to get rid of her so that she could, and it wasn't a romantic interest. It was, I want him to train me, and I want him alone to train me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't want her involved.
I want what I want, and I'm going to act out if I don't get it. And I think her father being a well-known or a wealthy, at least, lawyer, probably can't be understated. I didn't hear anything much about it other than he was just a wealthy attorney, came into the picture at times. But I could imagine there was a lot of pressure there, even if he didn't directly pressure anybody, but maybe Michael knew who he was, and maybe that was enough for him to kind of back away a little bit and not press it as hard as he perhaps could have and should have. And if that's the case, it's a pretty bad situation for him, that he can't do anything about this thing that's just going downhill quickly because of consequences he might face. They're kind of out of his control a little bit, and that sucks. That's probably how Lauran got in these situations before. Dad kind of came to the rescue at times, and accommodated her behavior. If I had to guess, because we've seen that many times in many situations. Hopefully that wasn't the case, but I think it would be pretty easy for that to be the case. He's got a lot of money and wants to take care of his daughter.
Well, Michael's lawsuit alleged that the father didn't want Lauran to I guess live near him or with him, so that's why he was pushing she has to stay on the farm.
Well, yeah.
So I guess he was making his money work to keep her away.
That's true.
Her father came off on the 48 hours. Her father came off as very. I don't want to put any like stigma type words on it, but untruthful. We'll say is how he came off to me, especially when he said that Michael never asked Lauran to leave. And he said, in those exact words, Michael never asked Lauran to leave. But then there's testimony from a lot of people in the barn who saw him directly say, "Get your horses and get out."
I also think there was a document as well.
There was a neighbor who said they saw the red eviction notice put on the door.
Yeah.
And then there's the 911 calls that happened a couple of weeks before the incident.
We'll get to.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Like, all of this is evidence that Michael was repeatedly telling her, "Get out.
Right. Right.
Get off my property. Go, leave." But her father was like, he never told her to leave.
Sounds like something Lauran would say.
There's really no question that he told her to leave. I don't have any doubt in my mind that he did.
I don't either. And I think that every time that happened, she escalated her things on social media. She got around to posting deliberately in horse and dressage community sites, ridiculous, like awful things about Michael, about how he was homophobic, about how he was racist and anti-Semitic, and like just things that anybody who, all the people who testified on his behalf said like he was never been that way, not ever. And even some of the people who wouldn't be on his side would testify to the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it was just flat out not true. But she was trying to ruin his reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah, she also allegedly dressed in black and snuck around the woods at night. I presume they meant the woods around the farm. And if again looking at the geography, there are plenty of trees, and it looks like that's believable. And she planted audio recording devices. I imagine like little, like the kind that the counselors sometimes use for training.
Right.
I imagine something like that. In a few places, more places than maybe she said.
She did admit to putting, she and Robert, her boyfriend, did admit to putting recording devices. Their claim is that they only put them in places that she was allowed to access, like in her locker. But then there were other people who were around the farm, other students, who said that they picked up that they had recordings of private conversations, and that Lauran posted on Facebook quotes from these private conversations that were had in Michael's office, which is not anywhere near the lockers, behind closed doors.
She tried to make it sound like it's a big open area.
Yeah.
But there's a door. There's no question it was a private office.
Yeah, it was a private office, but there's, she's quoting these conversations that happened behind those closed doors. And it's just, we have evidence that she got recordings. There's no, it's not allegedly she recorded. She recorded. Yeah. She admitted it.
Right.
And there's the recordings and the Facebook posts that have her quoting these things. But her claim just is that, they were in public areas. It's a really impressive microphone on that recording device. If you put it in your locker and it picked up through walls at the other end of the building.
Yeah.
Turns out she's just telepathic.
With horses and other people talking in the way, it's centered right down on that one conversation.
That's like those crime shows where they zoom in on the license plate a mile away.
Right. Can you clean that up a little bit? No, that's not how that works.
I took this picture with my flip phone. Can you clean that up a little bit? Yeah, well, all those horses talking, I can't imagine she would hear anything else.
And dancing.
Yeah. Well, they got their tap shoes on.
In the opening statement for the defense, they said that he hired a debugging company and spent thousands to get some debugging company. They didn't find anything. Now, I didn't hear anything about that statement throughout the rest of the trial. So I don't know what kind of debugging company doesn't find things that were actually there, and how, or if she hid them that well that they just couldn't find, or what you even do to debug a place to look for audio recording devices. There's a lot of questions there, and I didn't have any answers for that, unfortunately. But I want more answers.
But there were some other things that Lauran was doing against the rules of the ranch and the rules of the training. Some of the other training said that she would go down in the middle of the night to the stables and go into the stables, which she wasn't supposed to do, because the horses need their rest too.
That's the time when they go out to the bars. I mean,
right. I mean, well, they're coming back from the bars. They might have
There's
they might have tied one on.
There's
so
your
to
work
speak.
dancing, and there's your recreational dancing.
exactly. Right. They need their free time.
Sometimes you got to flash dance. Sometimes you got to get footloose.
I'm thinking Saturday Night Fever horse. Again, if a horse could do that, that would be as good as the Macarena.
They're just trying to stay alive. But she wasn't supposed to be going into the stables, but she would anyway. Her claim is that she had horses with special needs, and if she did, why didn't she express that openly to other people? Say, like, I know I'm not supposed to, but this horse has some special needs, and I need to be able to take care of that at these times. Like, the horse needs to have the thrush bruster put on their foot at 2:00 in the morning. Like, okay, well, then we can make sure there's an allowance for that. But we have to make sure, like, any kind of business running like that has to be able to make documentation on those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But she apparently didn't, and she would just go in the stables whenever she felt like it, when she wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah, there was a lot of boundary crossing on the farm, right? So this brings us to close to the shooting, but not quite there. July 31, 2019, around 8 p.m., Michael calls 911. Mm-hmm. He said he had been verbally assaulted by Lauran. He also mentioned stalking, harassing, and that other people were concerned as well. It wasn't just him as the target. Afraid for his safety, the police came out, and they're like, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, it's just a landlord-tenant dispute. You're fine.
Yeah.
August 1, around 6 p.m., so the next day, he called the police again. They came out, and no big deal. It's all under control. Not going to worry about it. 2 days later, August 3, 9 p.m., he calls for a third time. This time, if I understand it right, he made it clear that she had a weapon, and he informed them about the criminal history. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, we're good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's just a landlord-tenant dispute. You're fine. Nothing we can do about it.
I could only find record of 3 times, but I'm pretty sure 48 Hours said there were 4 times. Mm-hmm. But either way, multiple times.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
We got at least 3 instances where he's calling the police to try and get her out. Mm-hmm. I've heard some of the audio of one of the calls where he said, "I need them out of this house tonight. It needs to be handled tonight."
Yeah.
But the police in the area just were like, yeah, what do you want us to do?
Yeah. And no plan. Like, I can understand the police being hesitant because there's all kinds of bizarre laws around kicking people out of a residence. Like, it just becomes insane. Yeah. Like, I don't know if it's as bad as New Jersey and New York. It's out of control. Like, people can squat in those houses like for years. Like, it's Chicago, I think, is the same way. Like, it's a full-time job. Squatters, like, you can't get rid of them. I don't know about New Jersey, but they could have put like some plan in place. And they didn't. Mm-hmm. They didn't do anything.
Some areas of like most areas of the country have some sort of squatters' rights laws, but the only one that I know of off the top of my head is Maryland. And in order to get squatters' rights in Maryland, you have to have been on the property with no other buildings or presence of anyone else for something like 18 years before you can claim this is my land. If it's anything short of that, they're just like, kick rocks, get out of here.
Well, a lot of times there's like a minimum, like 30 days to 6 months, depending on the jurisdiction, where like if you want to get a tenant out, whether they pay you or not, it's a big deal. And landlords can get pretty good at navigating the courts, but I don't think Michael was in the business of. He probably was more familiar with horses complaining.
I would imagine, I don't know this to be true, but I would imagine in that area that the police maybe didn't get a lot of calls like that, about people with erratic behavior like Lauran was displaying. Maybe they did occasionally, but I just can't imagine, based on just how my perception anyway of how nice that area was. Yeah, people have a lot of money with the horses and all that kind of stuff. I just don't see that as an area where they get a lot of erratic behavior, people trying to stay somewhere where they're not welcome. And maybe the police just aren't really prepared for that, like they might be in a major city or somewhere where that's more common. I don't know that to be true, but that could be the police experience with that could be a factor in that as well. The reason why they didn't do anything, perhaps.
Yeah, probably not a high action police job up there right now.
It definitely failed to act
Yeah.
on anything.
Yeah, and he sounded distressed. It wasn't, I mean, it certainly warranted doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, Michael was known for years to be a very verbose and open and fun-loving, funny individual. Got along with just about everybody he met. People were struck by his charisma and his personality, but a lot of people who lived, worked around and on the farm said that in the weeks leading up to this event, he started becoming much more withdrawn and erratic in his behaviors and much more fearful of just about everything and much more distressed by even little things. So, sounding distressed on the 911 calls fits right in with those descriptions as well.
Yeah, apparently one of his clients owned the Ruger LC9S 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Looked like it had the pink. Yeah, it had like pink. So, it's. I'm not a big fan of that.
It's like a pink and black camo handle.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that designer stuff, whatever it is. That's not very classy in my opinion. But either way, I mean, it's a gun, right? It functions the same. But I never really understood is that going to help it be more accurate or easier to clean? What is the
style? Some people like style.
Yeah.
Maybe it came from like a 9-year-old girl or something. Like, oh, this is the one my dad gave me to learn on or something.
Yeah. I mean, he took possession of it either way. And from what I could tell, they showed pictures of the cartridges. They look like Full Metal Jacket. So I think New Jersey has some issues with hollow points. That might have been what saved Lauran's life because, Full Metal Jacket won't do anywhere near the damage. But a 9mm is still a pretty punchy cartridge. Yeah. I mean, it's the one that most police departments use. But again, the hollow points, they're much more dangerous. Yeah. So he had this, and he had, I think, at least one magazine, and he kept it in a safe inside his office. Yeah. This was a few days before what happens.
Right.
You mentioned earlier the water damage in the house and them having a dispute over who's going to live there. Michael and his girlfriend, they moved down to the stables. Mm-hmm. Like they felt so put out by Lauran and her boyfriend that they surrendered the house and moved to the stables, which is, as he said, was like a quarter mile away.
But on the same property.
Yeah. And so they moved down to apartments in the stables and were living there because they couldn't deal with things that were going on in the house.
And they were afraid. I mean, there's a part of it they were afraid too, for their own safety or for what Lauran, and her boyfriend might do. And that's a significant thing. Like you said, Mike, kind of giving up your house. Like, I own this, but I'm really worried about what's going to happen. And I'm out of here. Like, I'm not even going to try to pursue this, kicking you out, trying to deal with all of this right now. I need to be safe.
But Lauran just kept up her the social media assaults and the verbal altercations and pushing things. And eventually she would make a report to Safe Sport, which is an organization that kind of is a watchdog for a lot of different sports, but it also oversees the dressage community. And if you're suspended by Safe Sport, you can't do anything in the sport. Like you have to cease and desist on doing training for anybody. You obviously can't participate in any of the sports or sporting events. So she made a report that he was abusive and neglectful to his students
and to the children of his girlfriend.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's what really set him off.
Oh yeah. After
That was
that,
it.
it's like, nope.
Because safe sport, they do some investigation, but they also are obligated to inform, and they informed the Child Protective Services welfare.
Yeah, it's in New Jersey. I thought this was interesting. It's called the Division of Child Protection and Permanency. Just in case your kids are not permanent, they'll take care of that, I guess.
Well, they use that term.
I know. Yeah.
I'm thinking of when they use that in Delaware, and they're always trying to find permanency for the kids, which makes sense. You know, you want, whether it's, even if it's not with the biological parents. Yeah. But it's an interesting thing to put in the name. Like somebody sees that on a, vehicle, whatever, they're like, what are you trying to make permanent here? It probably freaks them out.
Save something for the description. Yeah. Right? Like, don't put it all in the title. Yeah. Division of Child Protection, I think, like, is there anybody who's ever like, here's that, and like, can you give me more? And permanency.
Oh, right.
I get it.
There yes, that brought it all together for me.
Like
the kids are permanent somehow.
I didn't realize the organization you were talking about until you added the permanency on the end of it.
I didn't know what you did until then.
DCPP. Apparently. August 7th.
August 7, 2019. So this would be, 4 days after the last, what I think is the last 911 call.
Now, I think that, I think I heard this at least once, that Lauran would claim that Michael and Mary had relationship problems. They were always arguing or fighting or something. And that was the reason for the police being called to the farm so often. I don't know if that's true, but I thought I heard that somewhere. Was that?
That might have been her claim, but the audio from the 911 call specifically makes it clear.
A very different story.
That he was calling about the two of them, Lauran and Robert.
So on August 7, in addition to the safe sport thing, that's kind of off in the distance. So the caseworker's on the way. Right? She's on the way to the farm. Mm-hmm. As this is happening, Lauran, again, back on Facebook. Right? And this is the day she's shot. She posts, "All my moves against them have been planned for months." Sounds ominous. "And everything I've done to them so far has been child's play." So she's ramping up as the caseworker is inbound.
Just driving onto the property.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it turns out there were no kids on the property.
No. Mary's daughter was off I think it was at a birthday party or something, and they'd sent her son back to his father. And from what Michael Barisone said on the 48 Hours episode, like it was a very emotional moment for him sending the kid away, because he really adored her kids. And so, you're my favorite person in the world, but it's not safe for you to stay here. You've got to go. And that to me does not sound like somebody who's been abusing children.
Mm.
Yeah, right.
No, so he went into the office. The caseworker and Mary were in there, and he kissed Mary. He's like, "Why don't you guys wait outside?" He goes in, gets the pistol, and I imagine loads it at some point, and he drives to the white farmhouse. Mm-hmm. And at this point, there's no way to know what happened. I can't believe how terrible the police investigation was, to where they can't even prove who shot the gun. Presumably, it was Michael, but they can't prove that. Mm-hmm. You watch the court proceedings, and where's the witness saying that he shot the gun? Lauran and Robert, they're not trustworthy.
Right.
No gunshot residue. Tests were done.
Mm-hmm.
There's no camera. There's no video footage of it. So now Michael didn't testify, which is his right. But there's this idea that he's kind of conceding that he did, but technically he didn't concede that.
Mm-hmm.
No. He said on multiple occasions outside of the trial that he doesn't have any memory of what happened. Like, once he grabbed the gun and got in the car and started driving, things kind of fade.
Yeah.
I think he said he doesn't remember getting the gun, right?
No, not even the safe incident, which is why I think that's a concession, right? Because he does. I mean, in my opinion, he almost certainly did remember.
I'm sure he remembers grabbing the gun, but he also, like, his lawyer stated that he grabbed the gun because he was going to go confront. He didn't grab it to go up there and kill them, but he was afraid that if he went and confronted them, he would be in danger for his life. So he was bringing it for his own protection.
Right.
And since there had been physical altercations between him and the boyfriend before, it's a reasonable thing for a person to do. But he says he doesn't remember what happened at that time. And there are psychological reasons and physiological reasons why that could be. Because he was beaten badly.
Yeah, and bit. Her dog got him too, in the groin, as well as other places. Robert was a Marine, and I guess pretty physically fit, and the photographs of Michael don't look too great. It looks like he was worked over pretty good. But it was Lauran who was shot twice in the chest.
Michael said that he, after he blacked out, the next thing he remembers is trying to get up out of the hospital bed and being handcuffed to it. So he doesn't remember anything. The police officer who responded said when he arrived, he found Robert on top of Michael, like not just restraining him, but beating him, and managed to get him off. And then they turned Michael over, and the gun was next to his left hand. So it was there. But we still, again, we don't know what happened. The police investigators claim that it was raining, so there was no way they could get some of this evidence. I'm like, there's definitely still some ways you could get evidence.
Or at least try.
I mean, you can still do, gunshot residue tests on Michael's hands, but they didn't.
Yeah, which that makes no sense. They're pretty effective at detecting the gunshot residue if he had fired the gun recently.
And from what I understand, simple water won't wash that off.
That's not taking that off.
You have to use soap and kind of do a good scrub on your hands in order to get that off. But
it was a soapy rain, actually. That
again, New Jersey.
New Jersey,
Right,
they got I forgot about the soapy rain in New Jersey.
It's a thing.
It gets over everything. It just cleans everything.
It's a lot of chemical plants,
Right. That's why the white farmhouse was still white.
It was bleached.
It keeps them from having to bathe themselves and the horses. I mean, soapy
You
rain.
just run the horses out in the field during the soapy rain.
Exactly.
They'll be fine.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. So, what happened, right? Michael walked up there and shot her. Michael walked up there and was charged by the boyfriend and beaten and shot her. She beat him at one point, according to testimony, with a phone.
After apparently she had been shot.
Right, twice in the chest.
She got shot twice in the chest and then jumped on him and was beating him with the phone while her boyfriend was pummeling him. And then their dog came running. And then she got up and called 911 and said, Michael Barisone. I was shot by Michael Barisone, shot twice in the chest.
Right. It's interesting.
I was shot in the heart.
I was shot in the heart.
Right.
Michael Barisone shot me. Like, it just seems strange to use, I don't know, just to use the name. Like, okay, like
she had something she was trying to prove.
Yeah, I was waiting for her to spell it. Right? It's B-A. Did you get the B? It starts with a B.
Wait, I thought you said you got shot in the heart. Just we'll get to that.
Get to the shot in the heart.
All right, let me just spell it, please. Hey, what didn't the
See, the first name is spelled M-I-C.
Didn't the officer testify that when he got there, he asked who the shooter was?
I don't recall.
I kind of think I remember that. Which, if that's the case, if that's true, gives some credibility to like what exactly was happening there. That maybe Michael did shoot, but clearly he was the one who was not with Lauran. Lauran was clearly worse off. But between Michael and Robert, Michael was clearly the one who was worse off in that situation. If the officer that was responding didn't even know who the shooter was, for all he knew, it could have been Robert because he was the one beating Michael, and I think that would have been an easiest or safe assumption at that point.
Assuming though that the 911 operator forwarded any information over to him,
that's true.
Then he would have come on and it was like what's going on, and if Robert said, this guy shot or
this is Michael.
This is Michael, or
Do you need me to spell
Robert, it? Yeah, you need me to spell it. You need me to spell his name? It's B-A-R. But it really does beg that question, like what exactly happened? Now, none of the three of them came out completely unscathed because the dog did bite Robert as well. But it was probably accidental because they were rolling around on each other and the dog's trying to bite Michael and accidentally bites Robert.
That dog was thinking, finally Finally, some action. I'm going to jump right. I'm not missing my opportunity. I'm going to bite everybody here. Give me those horses. Where are them dancing horses?
I'll bite those horses too.
He's got a bone to pick there, right? I guess the dog. Did I hear right in the trial? The dog had intimidated other people on the farm before. Like there was some problems with the dog.
I thought you were going to say the dog intimidate the jurors.
Or on Facebook. The dog's on Facebook. And,
The dog engaging in witness intimidation.
Posting things about chess matches and.
I have no idea about that one. But yeah, apparently the dog was not well liked on the farm.
so it seemed to match, but good match to Lauran and Robert there.
Had the right owner. Yeah.
Yeah, they matched.
So Michael was ultimately charged.
Yeah.
Charged with attempted murder.
2 counts of attempted murder as well.
Right, 2
Because
people, yeah.
Robert said that he tried to shoot at him as well and missed. But as you mentioned, like they were never able to find a casing because the investigation went so well, so impeccably well.
Well,
they were never able to prove that the third shot was fired.
I mean, casings do dissolve in the rain. We all know that.
Especially
In
the
soapy rain.
Soapy rain,
Soapy
right?
rain.
It's going to dissolve that brass almost immediately. We all know that.
Yeah, that really worries me because, you figure with a pistol, like with a Ruger, it's going to eject to the right and a little bit back, like pretty much every semi-automatic pistol. It doesn't eject like 80 feet, right? It's going to be within, at the most 10 feet if it rolls. It comes out, usually 3-4 feet. Okay, say it rolls. Maybe it rolls like 20 feet. It's not going to be out of the area. You can find it. Right? If it was there, I mean, this is a serious, felony case. Send somebody out there and find that case. Wasn't there. And in my opinion, that means that cartridge was never discharged.
Yeah, it's likely it wasn't, but there was the claim, and so the prosecutors ran with it and put it on there.
Oh, wait a minute. You know what we're not thinking about here? The gun was camouflaged. Maybe some of the bullets were too.
Oh, it was camouflage. Yeah.
Of course they're not going to find it. It's camouflage.
Camo casing, you're never going to find a camo
Right.
casing.
Absolutely not. I mean, it might have been pink. But
Especially pink camo casing.
right.
That's going to blend in with everything.
literally everything. Yeah. Right. I don't know why we didn't think. You know what? The police probably thought about that. That's why they didn't even look. Yeah. They knew they weren't going to find it.
Or they just didn't do their job.
Perhaps.
But
Yeah, so this went to trial. The jury had choice: guilty, not guilty, which is what I would have gone with, and not guilty by reason of insanity. And I think that they probably felt sorry for Lauran a little bit because of the whole 4 or 5 days in a coma, whatever it was.
yeah,
And they split the difference.
She didn't do well. Like when she got to the hospital, she was very much in danger of dying.
Yeah.
And they put her in a medically induced coma for several days. And she had to do massive amounts of rehab afterwards. It was not great.
So that's because otherwise this would have been, I think, not guilty. I don't see how. I mean, I don't think he needed the insanity. I'm not sure he was actually guilty, like, of the shooting part. Like, I get it if they believed he fired the shots, then you're guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity. Well, although self-defense is still without knowing.
Yeah.
But with Michael not being able to remember, and I said there's psychological reasons. We know that trauma, and this was one of the things that irritated me the most when I was watching the 48 Hours. One of the, I think it was Lauran's father who said it, but it could have been somebody else. I was like you can remember everything right up until the criminal action, but then you can't remember the criminal action. I'm like, well, if the criminal action is traumatic, yes, absolutely. People will often black out the exact details of a specific traumatic event, and arguably shooting someone is traumatic.
Yeah, but the safe. I mean, he would have remembered getting the gun. So I think he remembered.
In addition to that, the physiological stuff, he was beaten badly, especially around the head. And that could cause short-term memory loss for a few hours before that event.
Right.
For up to a few hours before the event, or a couple of days.
He has a couple of ways he can approach the amnesia, but I don't think that was a good play. I think he wasn't testifying for himself. So I don't know why. I don't even know how that got in to the trial. Maybe he made that statement to the police later, before or something, but he should have just not ever said anything.
I think it came in from one of the expert psychological witnesses.
Oh, okay.
Mentioned it. And I know that the rebuttal witness mentioned it a lot.
Yeah, there's two.
That's who it was. I think that's who it was. It was a rebuttal witness.
Yes, he was the one who was going on about like how convenient it is, and he didn't he didn't appear, I don't think, credible in front of the jury. I think he really shot himself in the foot many times during his testimony.
He was a little bit more animated and emotionally invested in his testimony.
Yeah, it was strange. It was like the other professional came back up for rebuttal, like on the MMPI, I think it was, with the like it should not have been that complicated. And he also talked about himself for 45 minutes. Like, it just, what are you here to do? Like, what are we like?
One of his claims was on this instrument, this question is supposed to indicate that he's lying, and it indicates he's lying.
He was taking individual questions off the MMPI, and there's 500 and something items on that, true, false, right, or whatever, like yes, no, true, false, whatever it is, like binary, and you're endorsing an item or you're not, okay, and he was pulling individual items off of it and reading them when that's not how you can't.
Right.
No, that's not.
Those are interpretable.
Yes,
it works as a whole.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, there are control questions that can be put in to make sure that somebody's not just pencil whipping down and just going like true, because they're obviously set up to be, if you're reasonable, false. So if you're actually reading through the questions, you'll go over to false and reasonable. And we saw that on the SQR 90. We used it up at Eagleville.
Oh, SCL 90?
The SCL 90. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The SCL 90 had like 5 of those embedded in.
Right. The idea is that they're unlikely to be endorsed, right? So like if you're not paying attention and you're just like, yeah, and it's like, wait a second, that's supposed to be a no, or it's supposed to be a yes, a true or false.
Now, one of those might be
right.
Out of thing, but it's if we're looking at their control, because we're looking to see if multiples of them have been endorsed, and if one of them has been endorsed, whatever, it's not really an indication of falsified information, but if multiples of them are. So taking out one question from the MMPI and going like, well, this one indicates that he's lying.
One of the questions on the MMPI, if I'm not mistaken, is, do you like horses? Right? I mean, so like by themselves.
He said no.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Not after all this.
Only dancing horses. How do I answer this question? But one item by itself is meaningless at a mathematical level on the scoring. But the validity scale is the MPI, and they talked a little bit about this the testimony. They're one of the developers of the test. One of the people who worked on it at I guess it's the University of Minnesota or wherever it is. They've said before in articles, like there's publications where they're like, you can't necessarily trust these validity scales if you think somebody's lying to you. Like it's different if you have somebody who's trying to get help from you.
Right.
Like I'm coming in for depression, I take an MPI, which I wouldn't because it's never used that way, but or rarely. But if you're trying to detect malingering, you can't trust it. I mean, everyone's trying to find the lie detector. Yeah. So you have the police with their little gizmo. Let me hook up this gizmo, and it'll tell you accurately what it's measuring, but not about lying.
Let me teach you about these micro expressions.
You get the TSA spending
you can tell
millions of dollars on micro expressions.
Tell people are guilty by the micro expressions they make. It's totally not a thing.
That guy's carrying way too much deodorant to get through the checkpoint. It's not in a 3.5 ounce proper container. I can tell by his facial expression.
You can't have more than 3 ounces of a liquid. Carry it on. It's a liter bottle of ice. It's solid.
Let's wait a little bit and see what it is then.
It's like, wait, hold on. It's water. No, it's ice. It's solid. The definition of solid.
Turn up the thermostat. Let's see what he says then.
Yeah, so you have all these people trying to make up the lie detector, and then the mental health professional is like, don't leave me out of it. We have this MMPI, which is a great instrument. I mean, it is a statistical wonder, but it cannot detect lies, and it never has been able to.
Yeah, all you got to do is just detect somebody's electrical current, in their body, and that's the way you tell lies. Everyone knows that.
Have them take an MMPI, right, as they do the lie detector, and a TSA, when they specially trained, TSA officers, whatever, come on the scene like, you carrying shampoo? What are you doing, man? Do you have a penknife?
You got to have 5 of the administrators for the polygraph hanging around, just watching behind the glass.
Yeah, if you get all those things combined, I mean, you got to find something out at that point, right?
Get the body language experts from social media in there.
I did find it interesting. The expert the defense brought in, I think he was the neuropsychologist, ended up spending like 38 hours over the course of several weeks with Michael. Like, that's a significant amount of time to spend with someone for doing diagnostic material and evaluation of mental state. And the defense or the prosecution's rebuttal witness, he did 13 hours.
And only 1 hour of actual testing, they said, which I found curious because it was more than just the MMPI.
As a forensic psychologist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've said many times, the world of mental health, no matter what somebody's profession is, social worker, counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, it's not designed for an intersection with the law. It's not. It doesn't work that way. We're not actually that helpful in the forensic area. I'd much sooner take DNA, although that has some issues too, but DNA, fingerprints, video, I'd much sooner take that.
Social media posts.
Right, threatening posts. Then worry about a mental health professional who's like, no, there's these 500 items. Let me tell you about this one. Let me explain this one to you. Right. It's true or false, but you just hear me out. Okay, like he didn't even need to testify. Like it didn't.
No, I don't think he did the prosecution any favors at all. And his whole very over the top, like, I mean, come on, he told, that was one of the things he did. He's like, you want me to believe this? I mean, come on, dude, you're a witness in a courtroom,
probably being paid by the state, thousands of dollars, right?
Right.
They usually get around $5,000 for that work for prosecution.
And I think that definitely worked against his testimony being as credible to the jury. Because he was just very animated in it. And it was like, wait a minute, if he's getting that emotional about this, what is he hiding?
Yeah.
Yeah. I find it interesting that the jury didn't go just straight out not guilty. But the not guilty by reason of insanity will accomplish the same thing for Michael, because eventually he'll be released.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things they said, perhaps multiple people said it after the fact, was about how Michael looked in the hearing versus how he looked in follow-up things. So he looked very unkempt in that initial in the hearing in the trial, just kind of straggly hair, not shaven, just kind of. It looked like he was trying to play the part of an insanity defense kind of thing. And then it came back in for some of the follow-up stuff and was clean shaven, looked very different, was acting very differently, looked like he was well rested, things like that. And some people, of course, said, well, he's putting on a show, or he was, trying to play up to the jury, which may be true.
I think it's true. Yeah.
I think it might have been a little bit true, but there is a difference in I'm on trial for my life, and I'm freaking out about this, and I'm still shaken by all of this. And then the jury says not guilty, and this weight is just lifted.
Right.
And it's like, oh my goodness, people believed me.
The uncertainty of all of that could most certainly
is gone, and then people can turn over, and you're like, you know what? I think I need to shave. Like, I feel a little bit better. I feel more human now. I want to shower. I want to shave. Whereas before that, just the stress of the not knowing, stress of the potential of going to jail for the rest of your life,
right? Absolutely.
On top of very real depression. So he was diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder, and the sheer amount of bullying and abuse that he was put under during that time period, like this, really strained his capacity. And I really think that having, looking at the way his face was in some of those instances, like, there was very real distress in him. It wasn't just an act. I mean, I'm sure his attorneys told him to,
Well, his attorney specifically said he didn't. He didn't instruct him. But I mean,
but that's part of a lawyer's job.
but he wouldn't have to instruct him. He could say something like, "There was this case once, where the defendant looked like he didn't know if he left his oven on or not the entire trial, like, and it was not guilty. So what do you know? He could have said that.
Right.
What's interesting? People with glasses are less likely to be convicted than people without glasses. I'm screwed. but that's actually a thing that the lawyers will look at. And statistically speaking, it's true. People with glasses are less likely to be convicted. I think it's like 5% or something like that.
So you should have them like here, one on each ear.
Really increase the chances. Yeah. Wear a shirt that says "I love glasses" or something.
Especially in violent crimes. When violent crimes occur, put glasses on the defendant.
Not sunglasses, though.
Not sunglasses.
That would work against you.
Sunglasses would work against you. Yeah. Sunglasses would have the Terminator effect. It's like, oh god, that guy's guilty. Why? Because he looks like the Terminator.
And if there's a glove you can put on just to see if it doesn't fit, that might be a good way to go too. And
always, if you're ever going to try on a glove in court, make sure you have a latex glove on first, and that you bunch your hand up.
Or don't take what did OJ do? Not take his blood pressure medication or something the night before, so his hand was bigger. Yeah.
Not saying that was one of the most ridiculous moments in court, but it's up there.
Yeah, well, and that thing with O.J. Simpson, I mean, you had very good attorneys on both sides. I actually think Marcia Clark was a pretty good prosecutor. A lot of people didn't like her. I think she's actually very intelligent. But she was going up against like F. Lee Bailey, the Kardashian guy, not the Instagram model, but
her
dad.
dad.
Yeah,
her dad.
And Johnny Cochran, right? I mean, so it's like the dream team of attorneys. You have to, like, everything is going to be fought, and and a judge who's like, let's have a party. Like, we're not even going to worry about time, and he's just, hey, you do whatever you want. I'm having fun here. The cameras are on. Like, just we're not, like, procedures. Oh yeah, whatever. Like, just have fun, guys. Have fun. Like, that's what we're here for, right?
It's like, hey, we're going to call recess. I'm going to play kickball. Anybody want to do dodgeball next after that?
OJ, party at your house now? Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Hey, OJ, can you invite Leslie Nielsen next time?
So yeah, not guilty by reasons of insanity. That was it. That was the conclusion. Of course, there's civil suits that I mean, I don't know all the facts, but based on what we know, I don't really see a jury falling in love with Lauran in that case either.
No, I think they present some of those Facebook posts before the jury, and they're going to be like negative.
I don't think the acquittal, I guess the acquittal. I don't think that is admissible in the civil. I don't think you can talk about that because it's a separate process, and it has like potentially different evidentiary rules and all. So I think, although I imagine if they read the newspaper, or whatever internet, look at the internet, they can see. And he's not in prison,
right?
Like, so they can figure it out.
Yeah, he was remanded to a state hospital, like a high security state hospital. But recently, I think it was a 6-month evaluation was done and brought before the court, and a judge ordered him moved to a less restrictive facility, probably one that his money can afford.
Yeah.
And then they'll review again in 6 months, and I wouldn't be surprised if in 6 months he's just released.
One last thing about the trial itself. Did you see the judge with the interrupting of the defense? Like, so many times. I've seen a lot of trials, and typically the judges are they're there to kind of enforce the rules, but not like to do personal indictments of the attorneys. Like, if they break the rule, like, hey, don't do that.
Right.
He was like, it was personal with that judge. It was like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, wow, like, calm down. Now, I would say, Michael's attorney was interrupting Lauran a lot, and that's not a witness you want to interrupt. Let her talk. she was doing a good job for you.
Yeah, she was.
Let her do it
Yeah.
herself.
She would over-answer those questions by like 5 minutes. I'd be like, you know what? Let's go.
Okay.
Keep
So
talking.
I got one more question for you. Can you tell us about your Facebook posts? And just let her go. But some of the questions he asked and she answered were just, I think they were really the priceless moments of the trial. I think. It's like, did you plan to ruin Michael's life? And she's like, at some point, and yes, I did. It's like she said the quiet part out loud.
The part that was supposed to stay up in her head, that came out.
Yeah, she also lied about so many things, caught in so many lies. I do think the whole thing with the phone, I feel like the defense attorney could have saved the jury a little time there. I kind of get why the judge was upset with, like, look, you're just trying to figure out where the phones are. Step by step, just go through the process. Instead, he was kind of all over the place with that. Like, so whose phone did you have in your hand? You had your boyfriend's phone, and then what did you take it in steps, man. Take it in steps.
Yeah.
You don't need to. I almost felt he was a little aimless. But yeah, I mean, overall, obviously, it's hard to criticize him because he managed to get one of the rarest verdicts ever.
Lawyers, go ahead, Mike.
I was just say, I was just looking at. It's reminding me that attorneys can, like, everyone has their own perspectives on things, but sometimes attorneys will ask questions that, to me, seem like ridiculous, like, and they're rhetorical. Some of them are very rhetorical questions. I mean, if you're addressing a witness, one of the basic rules is don't ask a question you don't already know the answer to. But in talking to press and things like that, they'll ask these very rhetorical questions, and in closing arguments, they'll do the same thing. But one of Lauran's attorneys, Nagel, said, and this is a quote from him, he's like, if he was temporarily insane, why did he sit in that courtroom every day looking disheveled and looking like he was a crazy man? That question backfired on you. We're trying to establish that he's crazy. Well, why does he look crazy?
He looks too crazy to be crazy.
And he's like, he did it because he put on a show and the jury bought it hook, line, and sinker. That's not temporary insanity. That is fraud. It's a ploy and a show that he got away with it. We're trying to say he was driven nuts by the constant assaults on social media and the verbal assaults in his own home, and that you don't just turn that off.
Yeah.
The temporary insanity was it can get better. Like, it's not a permanent state, but it's not one that just, in that moment he was temporarily insane, and then like 5 minutes afterwards he was fine. Like, no, he's still struggling with all of the things that happened.
Right.
They diagnosed him with delusional disorder. His side. I'm pretty sure the state, they never render.
Oh yeah, they said he wasn't delusional.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites. Was they had their expert talk about the definition of delusion and how it's disconnected from reality, and then the prosecutor was like, well, if everybody around Michael is telling him that she's dangerous and he thinks that she's dangerous, how is that disconnected from reality? It's not a delusion. Right. To a mental health professional, the fact that she might be dangerous and other people recognize that does not mean that his delusion is not real, because it's the amount of difference, right? Like a reasonable person might say, well, she's kind of dangerous on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being Care Bears and 10 being murder hornets. Like she might be a 3, but she's still dangerous. You need to watch out for her, especially for your reputation and things like that. But Michael's sitting here thinking she's at a 9. And that's where the delusion is the difference between what a reasonable person would believe as reality and what the delusional mind is thinking at that moment.
Yeah, I don't think they needed to go. I don't know if he was delusional or not. I mean, I'm guessing he wasn't. I think this was about stress tolerance. And I don't think that sounds as good as delusional disorder.
Yeah.
But, people can reach a point where they just can't take any more stress. And again, we don't know why he went over there.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily to kill. Maybe he decided to kill when he got there. Maybe he never decided to kill and was attacked. So there's just too many unknowns.
Right.
But the idea that he was delusional, I mean, I think it was just he was fearful, and he just couldn't take anymore, and he was going to end the pain.
Right.
And she was the pain.
Yeah.
I think that he may have been grabbed the gun again as a defense thing. I might need this. I'm going to take it. No plan as he's driving up there. Mm-hmm. And like even if what Robert Goodwin said was true, like he didn't give her a chance to talk. He just she came outside and he just blam and shot at her. Even if that's true, the perspective from Michael might be he got there, got out of the car. She comes on the porch yelling, stepping down the stairs. So she's coming at him. Mm-hmm. At that point, he's afraid for his life. Yeah. Especially if there's a lot of paranoia, and there's evidence that there's a lot of paranoia had been building up from all of these constant attacks.
There's a dog. A dog can be a deadly weapon.
Dog can be barking, and her ex-Marine boyfriend who's already physically assaulted him is right behind her. Like that. Those are moments where he could have just. Like, I don't know what I was going to do. Talk, yell, scream. I don't know. Right. But when when he saw her coming, the reaction was shoot. Mm-hmm. And then her boyfriend attacks him, and like the psychological and physiological traumas that he suffered in those moments remove his memory of what happened there, so he wouldn't be able to coherently say what happened one way or the other.
In survival mode.
Right. And that's where we get into the temporary insanity, because insanity is not a mental health diagnosis. Insanity is not a mental health term at all. Mm-hmm. It is a legal term, and it means the ability to distinguish right from wrong in a given moment. Mm-hmm. And if he was in that highly charged, paranoid moment, built on a foundation of continuous abuse and gaslighting, absolutely he was temporarily insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is one of those rare cases where he qualified as legally insane.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? That's not guilty by reason of insanity. You think about what was great for the defense was when Lauran was acting on the stand, like they were kind of asserting that she was acting on the farm. Mm-hmm. And I forget what it was in reference to, but at some point in the original story, she talked about disappearing. I don't know when it was. It was after the shooting, or I don't know like how she would do that because she was shot. But it was some point there was a reference to, I disappeared.
Right.
And they found out that she was there or whatever. And she's like, oh yeah, in my mind. Oh, of course.
Makes sense. Yeah. We all do that, right?
Yeah.
She made many references about mental health stuff. Like one of her posts was like, I'm not responsible for what any of my 9 other personalities do. When they're provoked. Oh, we make that 10. Or I've got to protect all 9 of us. I'm not responsible for what my other personalities do when provoked. I've got to protect all 9 of us. Oh, 10, including my boyfriend, and the dogs, and the horses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Robert turned off the camera right before the shooting.
Right.
They talked about turning off Michael's camera, or she talked about it at one point. Mm-hmm. Lauran herself had a lot of memory loss right on the stand.
There was a lot of stuff about those cameras because there was multiple cameras that could have seen the incident, but Robert said that he turned one of them off, and one of the other ones hadn't been turned off. There's evidence that it recorded, but there's no evidence of what happened to the recording. And the police investigation was unable to locate it.
Yeah. It's amazing how this goes from what seems like we talked about in the beginning, a very clear-cut case of guilty.
It's a clear-cut case. Landlord walks up, shoots his tenant twice. Yep. He must be guilty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then to get to the end and be totally another camp and agree with the jury. The only thing I don't agree with is how long it took them, right? It should have been like this, like walking into the jury room. We're good?
So
we all understand?
Yep. Everybody for the insanity? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, good. Can we order lunch before we go back out there? Like, it should have been like an hour max.
Well, there have been trials before where jurors would later say that they had decided in 5 minutes, but they wanted to make it look convincing, so they took
believable
half hour or whatever. It's oftentimes it is the murder cases where the like the defendant looks like a killer. Like the Ronnie case comes to mind.
Right.
You're like, did that jury really need any amount of time? Like,
we've reached our verdict.
like still in the jury box. We don't really.
We don't need to go back there.
Don't really want to get up.
Like
Can
they all just look at each other in the jury box and nod, and everybody nods. They're like, okay, we know what the verdict is. You're not even going to go to the deliberation room? No, we're good. We know. Everybody, okay, yeah, we're good.
I'm sure Ronnie had a tough life.
Yeah.
The evidence will show.
The evidence will show that Ronnie had a hard life. The evidence apparently did show that Michael Barisone was pushed to his absolute breaking point and broke.
Yeah.
And he's going to be years trying to recover from that, even if
Yeah.
no matter what happens with his disposition of release, even if he spends the next couple of years in a facility and gets out, he will spend the rest of his life dealing with the remains of this trauma.
I had read somewhere that he, I don't know this to be true, but that he had sold the property in New Jersey and was kind of done with that, maybe to help pay for things, but also because he was in jail prior to the...
For years, right?
Yeah.
He was in jail.
So obviously
he
couldn't maintain that kind of thing.
He wasn't released on bail, so he was in jail from 2019 when the incident happened, and it could have been put on trial earlier, except for COVID,
right?
Like 2020, like not the show, the year, completely pushed everything back, which is why the trial only took place earlier this year, 2022.
Yeah.
And it lasted 2 weeks.
Yeah, so you figure with all the work before that, and then, of course, the time for his attorney, probably several $100,000 in legal fees. Now, the horse dancing business probably paid pretty well. You had the farms, maybe, I don't know.
Multiple students in 2 different states, all paying, thousands of dollars for boarding the horses and lessons. Like he was comfortable, at the very least, comfortable.
Yeah.
In the wealthy sense of the word, not my Barca Lounger's comfortable. Like like I'm downplaying just how much money I have in my bank account when I say I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
He's probably doing all right. Who would have thought like the dancing horse business would be the way to go? Never, ever would have occurred to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. The horse business would be the way to go. I mean, some horses are worth tens of millions of dollars. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get a horse for a relatively reasonable cost. The Bailey, or my fiance's horse, she has now, she got for like about $1,300 at a horse auction. But at the same auction, there was one that sold for several $100,000.
What's the game we've talked about before? The Western game. Is it
Red Dead Redemption
2, right?
Yeah,
2.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Where like if your horse runs off, you can order like a loser horse, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like that's why I picture like the discount horse, right? That you can get that horse. It's like your default horse.
Yeah.
If you have one that goes to your stable that stays with you. If that horse dies, you can steal somebody else's horse. Or if you die, they'll just, at the same time as the horse, they'll just give you a randomly generated horse.
Yeah. I imagine in the Old West it was important to have a quality horse.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
One with all the maintenance records and
Yeah.
A warranty.
Make sure you've got it. You keep the warranty up.
the OnStar. Keep that active.
Yeah. Well, that was for the sheriffs. The OnStar.
Oh, that was good. That was good. But to the outside world currently, like I don't know anything about horses, and I'm okay with that. Like it's just not something that's ever interested me. But obviously, those people who are in that world, dressage, otherwise with horses, that's very meaningful stuff. Like they understand the difference between $100,000 horse and a $1,300 horse, and I don't understand the difference. They both look like horses to me. I would imagine one runs faster than the other, or can do more things than the other, or is smarter than the other.
Are you saying all horses look alike?
That's what I'm saying. But So I don't understand it at all. Like, for somebody to say they're paying hundreds of thousands or millions or whatever for a horse, it's like, that sounds crazy to me. But obviously they're getting a return on investment there somewhere. And I think about the Clydesdale horses as well. Like, especially when you see them on the police patrol. I forget what they call the horse units, I guess.
Mounted police.
Mounted police, yeah, thank you. Like, that's very impressive. You know, the way that they maintain the horses and dress accordingly and so forth. That's really impressive. Still doesn't mean anything to me. That horse versus another horse. I know that these horses are bigger than other horses, but that's about it. And so it's I don't know. This is a world that doesn't make any sense to me, but clearly it does to a lot of people. And clearly Lauran was willing to really ruin someone's life over horses, I guess, or just, because of horses or something.
I think she wanted to be a Olympic champion, and she felt like Michael could get her there.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was that good. Like, I'm sure she was somewhat good, but like not Olympic level. Like the dance moves of the horse just wasn't gonna.
Michael at least did see enough talent in her that he thought that she could make it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because she had gone to what they call a clinic that he did in Florida to just introducing a whole bunch of new students, potential students, and he approached her and said, "Yeah, I think you could do great." And
talk about ruin the day, huh?
Yeah, but he approached her. I mean, she went out of her way to get down there, but she had enough skill that he saw that and was like, she's got some potential, and we can work on this. But she just would not follow the rules of the program, and she would not. She wanted him to be the trainer and didn't want to get from anybody else, even though those people had learned a lot from him and had their own experience that they brought to the table. And to me, as a lifelong learner, like anybody who has something to teach, I want to try and learn. Because I might already know something, but you might still know something that I don't know about the subject. So let me learn from you.
It's an interesting world. We dive into a lot of interesting cases that have like environments that are unusual, like aviation, maritime, motor vehicles, foreign countries, exotic locations. Horses are a whole nother world.
Yeah,
but
They are.
I think I just think with horses, it's just not relatable to so many people. Like that whole world, it's almost like, a brownstone in Manhattan or something. Like it's fascinating, but not many people could afford that. Like it's the elite in New York. It's a special environment that old money, pretty much gets you into.
When we're talking about suburban and urban populations, that's absolutely true. Like there are not a lot of people in the suburbs who have horses. There are almost nobody in the middle of the city who has a horse anymore. But when you get to the more rural areas, horses are huge. So it's a huge community of people who love horses and hold horses. I mean, not just my fiance, but one of my cousins has horses on a farm. And it's a big community. It actually is a big community, but it's not one of those ones that people who live in more suburban and urban areas are really familiar with. As it's really hard to keep a horse in an apartment. I mean,
well, because they're so loud with the dancing,
right?
It disturbs the disturbs the
Can't
neighbors.
have that. Yeah.
they also eat like horses. so much food. Well,
I saw a video not long ago, maybe like 6 months, a year ago, something like that, of it was a dash cam video. I think it was like, I want to say it's Ohio or maybe Pennsylvania. I think it was Ohio, where there was an Amish population. There's Amish populations in both.
Right.
And it was a cop pulling over a drunk Amish guy who was operating one of those black carriages.
The buggies.
The buggies, right?
Yeah.
So, and at one point, I think the cop or somebody said the horse knows the way to get him home. Like he was just, like the lights are on, and the horse, he was just not pulling over. It was like, you know what? It's like,
This doesn't mean anything.
he
to
played
me.
like
I'm out of here.
Grand Theft Auto at home or something. It's like, you know what? I'm going to, And
unlikely that the Amish guy was playing Grand Theft
I
Auto.
got the horse. The horse.
Oh, the horse definitely.
Yeah,
was.
yeah, the
Yeah,
horse.
the horse definitely was.
No, yeah, the Amish guy would not like the electricity and all that stuff. But yeah, he finally the horse like pulled over. I think he blocked him in or something.
Grand Theft
and
Equine.
the guy was like passed out. What's that?
Grand Theft Equine.
So it's a special version for a
Smaller population.
For the Amish population. Yeah. Right.
I drive occasionally through Amish country in like Lancaster, York area, which is there's quite a few.
Yeah.
It's quite like along 896, coming out of Newark, Delaware, as you go up toward Lancaster, and the 896 specifically, very windy, 2-lane road, extremely dangerous. The speed limit should be like 25 or 35 almost the whole way. I think it's like 50 at certain
it's like
points.
50 at certain points.
They got one-lane
wonderful.
bridges.
Yeah.
They've got all kinds of windy
Oh,
things.
yeah. The bridge, it's like...
Yeah.
It's like,
at the bottom of a really steep hill.
Yep.
And you're like, you come up, you're like, what just happened here?
Great for driving in a sports car.
One of the frightening parts of it, and I drive a pickup truck, good view, is when you're coming over those hills, and you're not so much worried about cars, but those buggies. Like if you come up, because they're going like 4 miles an hour, 6 miles an hour,
Right.
and you're going 40.
Right.
You
come up at just the wrong time.
Yeah, you come over that rise and you see that triangle of death. They have the mandated
Big orange triangle.
Yeah.
Reflective orange triangle.
And all you can picture is like Amish people flying everywhere, and wagon wheels and horses.
Somebody's bonnet's just going to come floating down.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And so I go, typically under the speed limit because just terrified of those things. Like they're just, and if they're coming the other way, that can be almost as bad because there's some
cars passing.
Yeah, they're coming head on, and it's like you're not gonna make it. You're like sitting there, like, you're not gonna make it. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. It's not. They probably should not be on the roads.
Or maybe the cars shouldn't be on the roads.
One of the other dangerous things is when people are trying to pass them, if they're accelerating too quickly as they're passing the horse, it can actually spook the horse.
Yeah, right.
My fiance has told me that numerous times. Like my car has a very loud engine when I'm accelerating, no matter how slowly I'm accelerating. The Challenger does not have a quiet engine.
Intentionally.
Yes, intentionally. It's a muscle car, so I'll start accelerating slowly, and she'll be like, "Keep it down. The horse can spook the horse."
Yeah, once the horse goes out of control, it's not like the Amish guy can turn the key, right? Like he's in trouble.
Oh, calm down. Yeah. Hey, did you guys see that they it was a teaser kind of thing, but they debuted or kind of gave allusions to the new Challenger for maybe 2024, the electric one, and
I did.
they have exhaust sounds on it, and I think they actually have exhaust pipes. If I remember
the
correctly.
Charger.
Is it the Charger?
Yeah, it's the Charger. It's the Charger Daytona EV.
Yeah. Okay. And I think they actually have exhaust pipes on it, maybe, or something.
does, yeah.
And it was an interesting thing. I mean, that's a great idea, especially for somebody who is like, you miss the sound and the feel of it and whatever else, which is a valid point. But I guess leave it to Dodge to try to do something like that. Interesting thing.
See, the problem with that particular one is it is just a prototype car.
Yeah.
Like it's just the concept car. That particular car is not going to hit the market. But they did take the Charger for that one instance back to a coupe instead of a sedan. So it's got 2 doors, which makes it look a lot like the modern Challengers.
Oh, maybe that's why I thought it was the Challenger.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the modern Challengers. But I've been looking into it. I've been reading, following up because gas has gotten expensive. I have been thinking about moving over to an electric vehicle, and I heard electric muscle car, and I said, "Really?
Sounds great.
It sounds good to me."
Count me in.
But what it seems like is Dodge is most likely going to do a hybrid first before they go full electric, because they pumped a ton of money and time into developing the V6 Hurricane engine that they have, that they haven't put in like anything yet. So they're going to try and put that in as many things as possible, because that's supposed to be it's the next generation, because they're getting rid of the V8s. Like the V8s are going to be gone, so the V6 Hurricane is going to be the next big muscle engine, because it's supposed to put out like 500 horsepower for a V6. And they're talking about pairing that with 2 like 490 or 450 horsepower electric motors for acceleration. And it's like, yes, please. I would like to do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like the Plaid S.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I saw an article not long ago where somebody had a Chevy Bolt, which isn't a great car, but they brought it in, and the repair bill for the batteries was more than the car sold for new.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? I like gas. I'll stick with the gasoline for a while.
The Bolt's a bad example, though. I mean, it's riddled with problems. Not that some cars aren't, but the Bolt is and was particularly bad, especially currently all the recalls on it, and I think that was one with the batteries bursting into flames or blowing up or something like that.
Which is suboptimal.
Yeah, right.
If your electric
not what you
vehicle's
wanna do.
batteries burst into flames, you have some issues.
Yeah, just a few. I want to get one. I mean, that's our plan. Next vehicle, next time we need it.
Yeah, I'm very torn because of the battery costs, but I like the idea of charging with electric and driving locally and all. I just don't know. There was another story I read where I guess a Ford Lightning had to be towed because it ran out of power towing a camper, which camper's heavy,
Yeah.
wind drag and all that.
Right.
Probably hard to compensate. Like you can figure out the gasoline difference,
Sure.
but maybe it's harder, a kilowatt or whatever they use.
Right.
But yeah. All right. So any final thoughts on the case of Barisone?
I was thinking about potentially what his breaking point was. From what we can tell anyway, once the caseworker came with the allegations of, I think they ultimately said it was neglect was the actual allegation. He of course thought that it was some kind of mistreatment of children. If anything was going to be my breaking point, it would be that. You want to go after my business, that's going to be terrible, and I'm going to hate every second of it. It's going to make me very depressed, probably, and I'm going to hate it. But okay, I can adapt, maybe. You're going to come after my character, my credibility. Okay, that's going to be awful as well. I'm going to hate every second of that. But maybe, to an extent, it is what it is. But if you're going to say that I've done something bad to a child that I care about, whether they're my child or not, well, I can't. That's too far. And I think for me, if anything was going to do it, it'd be that. So I hear it, and I that gives more credibility to me about the insanity thing, because if I had someone show up to my door and say, "Hey, there's some allegations made against you about harm to a child," I don't know what I would do at that point. So I hear him with that, and that would be a really difficult thing to recover from. And it would take me probably years to really come to a place in my life where I actually kind of return to normal. So this seems very believable to me, that in that moment that he would kind of reach his breaking point, and then it would take years for him to where he would still look unkempt and things like that at the court hearing and so forth. And then justification for that, from the court hearing, would be like, oh, like you said, Mike, huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And I can only imagine what that feels like, to have an allegation made against you. Something that you would never do and is completely untrue. And that's really what sticks out to me here, that Lauran was willing to go to that point and accuse him of something. I don't even know what she accused him of, if anything, really. But accuse him of something against such a vulnerable population. That's just too far. And so, yeah. So I can only imagine what he felt like at that point. Or didn't feel like, because he doesn't remember it, at least according to him.
Yeah, she kept pushing until she found something that triggered him.
Yeah.
Like,
so my fiance definitely said, horse girls are crazy. All of them. She is a horse girl, so she would know. But it's just a matter of what kind of crazy. And to me, the villain in this whole situation is definitely Lauran Kanarek. And there's no area where I can see that she didn't push this to the point where what happened.
It was provocation.
Right. I don't want to say that anyone deserves to be shot, especially not shot in the chest, and almost die. But I will say that responsibility is different from deserving, and she has a responsibility for what she did that led to those actions. And like just like if you're working around horses and you rile a horse up and it rears back and ends up kicking you, that's not the horse's fault. Like, not that you deserve to be kicked by a horse, but your actions led to that happening. If you're acting in a safe manner around a horse, they can be wonderful creatures. I've been learning that and spending more time with Bailey and my fiance at the same time, and I enjoy giving them treats. So the entire herd apparently knows me as the cookie guy. So when I show up, the herd just they come to see what I got, even if I haven't gone into the barn to get the cookies yet. They all know, which is fine. They're intelligent, dynamic creatures, and human beings are no less intelligent and dynamic, but they can be pushed. And I think that Lauran definitely pushed Michael Barisone to the point where he wasn't thinking. He was reacting to anything in his environment, and he was pushed to the point where he reared up, essentially. And the verdict I found was to be absolutely right. And I will say, when I was watching the 48 Hours, I hadn't heard of this story before. And when they got to just the verdict point and they said not guilty, I was like, whoa, because I was not expecting it, because nobody ever gets acquitted on temporary insanity. Like, nobody. And they acquitted. I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing. That is the just verdict in this case. I expected him to be like, he'll be in jail for, he'll be available for parole in 2067 or something like that. Right? But the acquitted, didn't see that coming. But I'm glad it did. Yeah. Because I think that's the right and just decision in this case.
Right. There was reasonable doubt. Yeah. Right. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, I think in this case, obviously it's terrible when somebody gets shot, and nobody wanted that outcome. I think that there's a point where when somebody's behaving in a way that makes them look narcissistic, they're focused on themselves. It's all about them. The grandiosity, the envy, the arrogance, the fantasies of power, or dancing horses.
Or powerful dancing horses.
Powerful dancing horses. And they act out with only their own interests in mind. And here, you're looking at this case and you're thinking, with Lauran's behavior, what are you trying to accomplish? Because this guy's probably going to shoot you, right? And that's what happened. Yeah. So ultimately,
man, you keep pushing that button, someone goes shoot you. No, you got shot.
Yeah. Ultimately, it did not serve her interests, right? So it's kind of like how narcissism can boomerang and come back on the user, so to speak. Like she just kept pushing. I mean, it was painful. You could see the pain as kind of Michael's mental health declined. You could see, like, this he's falling apart, and Lauran, did not care at all. Like his feelings, there was no empathy. Like his feelings didn't matter. Like it was total war. Like it was just total destruction, scorched earth, and
that was in one of her texts and one of her Facebook posts was, it's war.
Yep. Sometimes there's consequences to behavior, and it's not a matter of what you can get in the courts, like, suing people for money. I mean, she could have been dead, and that would have been that. It's an unwise move.
Yeah, right.
Right. She chose foolishly. And, we hear all these cases about, like, this person provoking this person into a shooting, this person provoking this person into acting. This was a case of provocation. She provoked it. If she had not done what she did, none of this would happen. And she had many chances to stop. She could have left. She
Yeah.
was asked to leave.
Right.
There's tons of opportunity to not do the wrong thing. So, people want to victimize other people, and sometimes those victims will fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't remember or whatever.
Right. Right. Their instinct is going to be to fight back.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can't run from the situation, the only other option you have is to fight, and that's on the instinctual level. And the amygdala and the lower brain that controls that operates much faster than the prefrontal cortex.
Mm-hmm.
So, any thoughts for an item for?
There's only one item it can be, it's a dancing horse, obviously. The question I will put out to everyone, though, is should it be a dancing horse in a tutu like our ballerina here, or should it be in a ball gown? Horse in a ball gown. It's definitely going to be a dancing horse, of course.
I think another question to add on to that is what dance will it be doing? If it is the Macarena, I mean, you could get some movements going with that.
I probably could, but what outfit will it be in? And I will go with ball gown or ballet. Of course, if it is in a tutu like the ballerina here, it will be in a similar ballet type pose. The ball gown, it might do something a little bit more Macarena-ish. We'll see.
Yeah. So put your thoughts about the style, colors, the dance, anything in the comments, and Mike will come up with an acceptable horse. A horse of another color. To fulfill the item for this video.
It'll go on opposite side from the unicorn.
Yeah, the unicorn already does kind of look like a dancing horse.
Yeah, but it also still has a rearing horse. So.
Bit of a war horse.
But it's got the unicorn leggings on from LuLaRoe.
Is there any chance that unicorn is doing the Thriller dance?
Unlikely.
Unlikely. Okay. All right. Just had to check. Because that'd be impressive.
It would be.
All right. So we'll wrap up today's Alien Lizard Humanoids episode. Again, this was an acquittal. Right? There was no murder and no one died.
No murder. It was attempted murder, but there was an acquittal. The one last thing I wanted to point out to people who our eagle-eyed viewers often notice my socks, especially when I'm wearing the red shirt and red socks. These are not Flash socks. They are not Thor socks like the last ones I had. These are actually Spider-Man. So
I see the blue, right? Yeah. That gives it away.
My Spider-Man socks.
Very good. So we will be back soon to another episode of Alien Lizard Humanoids and Murder Part. Again, thanks for watching. Put any comments in the comment section. We read every one, and we will talk to you soon.